Okay, so today was meant to be, well, I was planning on showing you something really cool, but unfortunately I'm having really bad issues with Blender importing suddenly deciding to screw up. I had it like it was screwing up the whole level, now it's not. The problem I have is that basically when you hit play, everything's fine in the editor, but the moment you hit play, it has all these errors like, oh, some indices are referencing out of bounds vertices, right? And that's really screwy. I'm not really sure what is causing it, and like before it was just affecting one thing, but I had like a moment where just the entire map just started screwing up. And luckily it's gone back to just one thing. It's now only on these pillars. They just vanish. Sometimes just the vertices just go everywhere. So this is kind of what the game's updated to be. I'll show you it without the pillars because we're not going to be able to get them. I'm updating Blender, and if that doesn't work, I will update Unity to the beta, and hopefully that stops screwing up. But yeah, there should be pillars here, but they're not because they've vanished somewhere in the ether. God knows where. I do have a screenshot actually before I textured them. Well, actually, yeah, I had the old pillars then. Is that particle effect actually going through the pillar anyway? I think it might be. It shouldn't be actually. I don't know. Anyway, that's how it should have looked. So now it's just looking like the same thing but without the pillars. And I'm really liking it. These are particles from Ultimate VFX, kind of tweaked. The pack is kind of great, and it gives really good examples of how to set up particles. So you can kind of like mix and match pieces of it, or like use it to kind of make a new particle, but from a really good base effect. It looks really nice. These are what the pillars are eventually going to emit. There's going to be some kind of like emission system or like emission model here, so these don't just like pop out of thin air. Maybe I'll do some kind of like magical shit. I don't know, like a crystal or something that emits light, and then you put a focusing lens on top, which is going to be what this thing is. So the idea is when you start, this section is blocked off, and so these doors, and you take this focusing lens, which I might kind of do the whole kind of like flashes when you look at it. I'm not sure if that's actually a good technique to use because it kind of like makes everything obvious, and kind of it in games it kind of dissuades you from actively like trying to interact with objects, because you basically end up only interacting with stuff that flashes, right? It kind of teaches your player that the only stuff they can interact with is stuff that flashes. And sometimes you do not want everything in your environment to flash because then it just looks ridiculous, right? So I think I might just leave it as just it's there and it's well lit up. There is a light on there at the moment. I might make it a bit brighter. So when you spawn here, like your eyes are drawn to this area because it's going to be the only lit part of this room. And then you'll take this and the walls will like grind down with like lots of smoke effects and stuff. These doors will also grind down, and yeah, then you can walk around here and you'll see like, I'm not sure whether it's just to have these all white, right, and then you can put your focusing crystal on them, or have them, they start off coloured and the doors open, but the moment the walls come down, like the door slams shut and all these like flicker back to white to kind of like indicate that you should match them up, kind of thing. I think that'd be cool, but it might not make sense. I don't know. Yeah, what else have I done today? I made a few models. I looked at a bunch of references. That took a while. I did these. It didn't take too long. I changed the lighting as well. I forgot to mention that. It's now kind of... It's more lit according to the themes of Skyrim and stuff. So there is ambient lighting, which is quite dark. There is a direct light that shines like in one direction. I know Skyrim had it. I'm not really sure why they have it, but I figured, yeah, why not? It might give some kind of highlight to the scene. And yeah, everything's a little bit darker. I'm still working on the lighting. I think it's better now, but it still requires work for it to be kind of truly good. What else was there? I can't remember. I made a bunch of like media accounts because I'm hoping to do some kind of like, I mean, not really marketing for this game because I'm going to do marketing for this game, but not in the sense of like I'm trying to sell it. It'll be more like, hey, I'm doing this, check it out, and then it will kind of be like the build up to my actual game that I'll make after this is kind of like done and polished. I also found some nice textures on what used to be called CG textures. They've kind of updated their site now and they've got some cool stuff on. They've actually got nice textures on. And what I was thinking is, I noticed Blizzard kind of do this in Overwatch, is they kind of mix hand-painted style with realistic textures. I can't really describe it in any way other than that, because what they do is just like crazy. It's just so good. And if you go in game and you set your, I mean, even not setting the details to high and you look at their textures, they are phenomenal. So I might try and imitate that style by like drawing the hand painted texture first by myself, and it will be terrible. Let me try and find an example. I probably can't, I haven't really textured any of this yet, but you'll see it when I start getting stuff in. I've textured those crystals up there, but you can't see them from down here. Not these ones, these are untextured. Yeah, so I'll try and like mix. I think this one was a match between a few textures I found online that kind of blended together. I quite like it. There needs to be something that merges the sand with the floor. I think that's going to be accomplished through, you can do like height mapping between two textures, so it kind of like blends the textures in. Kind of like splat mapping, I guess. Yeah, but I'm going to try for this kind of like hand-painted, stylized, and also merge it with realistic textures that are kind of free to use for commercial stuff, so that it kind of creates this blend between the two, because I think it works quite well. I want to see what it looks like on all this geometry. I'm also going to change a lot of this geometry in here. Maybe I quite like the kind of like boxy nature of just the feeling that like not everything's aligned. Like a lot of temples you see, like they'll have very curved pillars or very like square pillars, and I quite like this idea of like having boxes that kind of like aren't quite fully aligned. It's kind of like the Skyrim Nordic ruins. I think it works kind of well, but I don't know if I'll keep it. I might keep some of it and then go for a more like temple kind of theme, because I don't know, like I don't know, it's like half of me really likes it, and then the other half is like, it doesn't really fit an Egyptian temple. Egyptian temple feel like it should have more curves and things like that, or like doorways that are like shorter on one top, for example. Like they're kind of like a triangle but with a flat top. If that makes sense. Things like that. Anyway, we'll see. Unfortunately the pillars are gone. Hopefully I sort this problem out by tomorrow, because there's a lot of things I like about Blender. Like, the alternative is I export from Blender to an FBX. But the problem with that is that I like to leave some modifiers on in Blender, like bevel and things like that, so it means that I don't have to bevel the actual model. I can just put it on as a modifier, and then I can, whenever it's all full and done, I can then apply the bevel afterwards, rather than have to apply the bevel and then edit with the bevel already applied, if that makes sense. Like, Blender allows you to do a bevel as like a modifier as opposed to actually editing the mesh. And then when you import it into Unity, it has the bevel applied, but in the Blender file it's not applied, if that makes sense. So that's handy, because it means that, you know, like, sometimes I want to do edits without the bevel and then apply the bevel on last. And if I just have an FBX, I can't really do that. I mean, I can keep it in the blend file, and I think it will export with the bevel. But if I have to, like, every time I make a change to a model, I have to export it to an FBX, it's just a little bit more work on top of doing it. And I like to make a lot of minor changes to my blend files, so I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it gets fixed. Fingers crossed. Anyway, I'll see you next time.